"Who am I?" she whispered. When she opened her eyes, she was looking into Agu's. A tear was falling down his cheek. He was shaking from the strain of her weight. "Something new," he said. "Something old," Anthony said. He laughed. "Something borrowed, more than gold, something true, never sold. Goddamn aliens, too fucking bold. Chale, see I spit to 'em." Then he grinned and shouted, "I dey craze!" I'm Michael Everts, and this is Fit to be Read. Nnedi Okorafor's African Futurism novel, Lagoon, is a unique brand of science fiction blending aliens, fresh mythology, and mysticism. The prose and pace are electric and fascinating. As with each review on this channel, the episode will begin with a spoiler-free review, character analysis, and plot summary. Following that summary, I'll announce a 5 likes and a 5 dislikes segment that will include spoilers. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button and the notification bell before we start. Okorafor, who has coined the term, considers African futurism a subgenre of science fiction, similar to Afrofuturism, but more deeply rooted in African culture, history, and mythology, branching into the Black diaspora, not centering on the West. Lagoon, published in 2010, is set in Lagos, Nigeria. Okorafor references the film District 9 as an inspiration for penning the novel, as a reaction to the problematic and offensive characterization of Nigerians in the movie. Nigeria, usually only thought of internationally in terms of its oil industry and implication in internet scams, never feels like an unlikely setting, and it's a welcomed backdrop. Being more experienced in reading Western literature, it was an obvious and a satisfying omission that there were no instances of Western nations swooping into the story. I was wondering where the American intelligence agencies were, while at the same time I was appreciating their absence and appreciating the consistency in the African futurism construct. The story begins at Bar Beach in Lagos. Bar Beach is popular with the wealthy and the not wealthy, tourists, families, hawkers, prostitutes, the homeless, law enforcement, those just off a night's work. In many ways, it reflected the mix of society of Greater Nigeria. Bar Beach is where the 3 main characters of the story are introduced. There's Anthony de Craze, a rapper known throughout the African continent, Agu, a distressed soldier, and Adeora, a marine biologist. This is a one-of-a-kind first contact science fiction novel. Events on Bar Beach thrust Anthony, Agu, and Adeora into the center of events, and they remain the focus of the story throughout. The events at Bar Beach leave the 3 forever changed in ways that they will discover, and in many other ways that they may never know. While much of the story is told from each character's perspective at different times, the story twists and turns, and it shares perspectives from other beings and minor characters like the man who likes to wear women's clothing, the live-in nanny, an internet scammer and would-be kidnapper, the shady evangelic minister, a swordfish, a spider, yes, you heard me correctly, a bat, and more. The perspectives are introduced in unpredictable ways and at a pace that's fast and often brief. Handled less carefully, this could feel jarring or disorienting, but Okorafor never stumbles. She lets us feel like we're reading an interesting science fiction novel and then sneaks in what feels like folklore, or perhaps what she refers to as African Jujuism. She spins small tales and then returns us to the larger events. At times, it feels like the events just take over and are telling the story. Okorafor introduces the reader to water witches, road monsters, masquerades, trickster gods, and other elements of Nigerian folklore. She gives us aliens, brutality, homophobia, philosophy, healing, shapeshifters, superhuman strength, and so much more. Okorafor never takes you far from the main plot or from the main characters. The reader is never left wanting, and in fact is always given more, and more. The story is beautiful and at times mystical. It is at times horrific and tragic. It's hopeful and inventive. It's local and it's universal. Nigeria is not painted as a paradise, but rather is represented respectfully. Lagos is perhaps the main character in this book, and there is a love story here between the author and the city, but one that shares the beauty and richness of a culture along with all of its failures, flaws, and shortcomings, and it's all on full display, unapologetic. Nigeria is a powder keg, and the events that unfold are as much a result of what was already there as it is the impact of the alien arrival. More often than not, First Contact or alien arrival stories go one of two directions, either the hostile encounter or the peaceful encounter. Okorafor did not get that memo, and she's not sticking to the script. Nothing in Lagoon fits into a neat little box. Back to our main characters. Adeora is a marine biologist. She's at Bar Beach recovering from the shock of being slapped by her husband Chris. This rocks her world. Chris, after facing a traumatic event in his life, has become a born-again Christian. His church has convinced him that his wife is a witch, a water witch, and slapping her is an appropriate reaction to that. Agu is a soldier, fearing for the life of his family. Agu is a moral center of the story. He witnesses his commander sexually assaulting a woman, and he intervenes. He pushes the commander away from the woman with extreme force. Fearing retaliation, Agu flees and contacts his family to warn them. Nnedi Okoraforis from Ghana is a world-famous rapper with a powerful command of rhythm. His voice figures heavily in the story. Anthony, from a young age, knows that his voice is unique and powerful. He ends up on Bar Beach following a concert in Lagos. There may or may not be outside forces that lead to Agu, Adeora, and Anthony being at Bar Beach at the same time that an alien ship intentionally falls into the sea and a giant wave grabs the three of them, pulling them into the water and forever binding them together. The brilliantly written bond between the three characters never needs to be blatantly explained. It is evident in the story and how the story unfolds. Authors should almost never be able to get away with the reader buying into the strength of bond that's present here with characters who've only just met. It is this completely believable bond that grounds the reader through the enchanting chaos of the action-packed story. Incorporating pidgin English and local slang is an element in the text that can slow the reader while still feeling authentic and adding richness to the story. There's also a pidgin English glossary at the end of the book that needs only to be scanned once to be really helpful. Okorafor introduces us to the Lagos Lagoon, exposes us to the terror of the highway where the misfit area boys prey on the vulnerable. She takes us under the water and beneath the land. If I say any more, I'm going to unearth the spoilers of this extraordinary, fit-to-be-read novel. If you've not read the book and you want to avoid the spoilers, now's the time to leave your comments below and subscribe to the channel to return another day. Now's the time for my 5 likes and 5 dislikes, including some spoilers, for Lagoon. Like number 1. It feels as if with the short chapters, Okorafor did a reverse Martian Chronicles. She wrote a brilliant novel and then made it feel like several marvelous short stories strung together impeccably. Like number 2. Once we get settled in with Adeora, Anthony, and Agu, it's a great chemistry and a great trio to track. The author never blatantly describes their connection, but how the men step up to Chris on Adeora's behalf, how they talk to each other, it's evident that they are solidly bonded, despite having only just met. Like number 3, a comforting sense of mystery and mysticism pervades much of the novel. The reading adventure feels like I'm sitting around a campfire, hearing a magical and epic story. but not in any way diminishing from a mature and sophisticated literary experience. Like number 4, the realism of the family conflict. The obvious is Chris striking Adeora, but the mention of him calling in their little daughter to pull her seemingly into the fight and to fill her in, to I guess get her to join in on admonishing and judging her own mother, it was a raw and a very real moment that I imagine that many with challenged home lives can really relate to. There are so many moments in the story that are visually larger, but the story's filled with these seemingly small moments that just scream loudly. Dislike number 1, I'm disappointed that I couldn't work out the meaning of the tale of the tarantula in the Act 2 prologue, The Bone Collector. Dislike number 2, I enjoyed the inclusion of the Black Nexus and the LGBTQ plus representation. I'm not sure this is a dislike, as their story, like the other non-central character stories, were not the primary focus here in the book, but I would have liked to have a little more closure or some follow-up on their story. I do appreciate, however, that they weren't props to just glorify the community. They weren't exalted, nor were they kept safe from the harm or brutality. On second thought, I really kind of like how they were handled in the story, so I really don't have enough dislikes to populate this list, so we're just going to keep it here anyway. Plus, if you've watched enough of my episodes, you know that by now this list is really just a means of furthering thoughts and discussion about the book. Dislike number 3. I'm concerned that this could be written off by science fiction connoisseurs as too much fantasy and superhero trope because of the writing style and the delivery, when in fact the same level of fantastical elements does exist in other First Contact or extraterrestrial type stories. Because those stories deliver the fantastic in more traditional or familiar ways, we take for granted that certain things are abilities or behaviors unique and acceptable from a potential extraterrestrial life. In Lagoon, I could see some diminishing it as an impermissible magic and thus taken less seriously. Dislike number 4. As much as I will sing the praises of Okorafor's abilities to make me accept the strength of the trio's bond, I did hunger for more depth to Anthony and Adeora. I felt more with Ayodele and Agu, but in regards to character development, this is one area where I was given more campfire story and less philosophical sci-fi. Even Adeora, being a marine biologist, barely figures into the story in any significance other than connecting her to the sea. She has a lab at home, but she doesn't give off huge scientist vibes. Dislike number 5. It's difficult to recommend this book universally. That's not usually an issue because there are so many other good universal science fiction recommendations. I'm not short on ideas. With Lagoon, it's a book I very much enjoy, and it's a book I really want others to read, enjoy, and appreciate. Much of what I like about the novel is the stuff that makes it not mainstream. I also feel like I'm not the best ambassador for the book. The things I think might be a barrier for some have to do with appreciation for staying rigidly true to the African Futurism genre. And from an academic standpoint, I'm not sure I'd be the best to articulate the how and why of it. Like number 5, we get the origin stories for the characters right when we hunger for them, toward the middle of the story. I have to believe this was intentional. This is not traditional science fiction, and to do the legwork of introducing the backstory for each character before getting to the meat of it really wouldn't have seemed right. I think it also contributes to how successfully we grasp the bond between those 3 main characters. The focus on the 3 of them swept up into the First Contact, and the events immediately following that with Chris, Ayodele, and others was nothing short of literary mastery. Lagoon is nothing short of fit to be read. The writing style is gentle and easily approachable, but not simplistic. It is at times poetic and never pretentious. The storytelling is fresh and unique while feeling pleasantly old and folksy and engendering a feeling of ancient mythology. Thank you for watching today. I'm Michael Leverts. This is Fit to be Read. Please like, please subscribe, please click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you.